I'm quite excited about what's going to happen here. And I almost need to apologize to our three esteemed speakers and to our fourth speaker, Wally, as well. I almost have to apologize because I've played around with a bit of tension and they don't know what's going to come. So if they're a bit stressed, they don't look stressed. They look very relaxed right now. But if they're a bit stressed, I apologize. But I was just trying to play with that. You're going to be a bit triggered now, I believe, because I'm going to ask you to do two things, if you don't mind. Can you take out your mobile phone? Now, I know we were encouraged to use our mobile phones as much as we can, to tweet, to put things on Instagram. But I'm going to invite us, it's not obligatory, I'm going to invite you to put your mobile phone on airplane mode, if you don't mind. Airplane mode. And then, after putting it on airplane mode, if you wouldn't mind, could you open up your calculator? It still works, believe it or not, on airplane mode. It's a revelation, I know. So open your calculator, put it on airplane mode, and then I invite you. This is the hard bit. This is the really difficult bit. You okay? I invite you to stand up, to take off your lanyard or your green, blue, white, whatever color it might be. There's a number of different colors. And bring your lanyard and your mobile phone. Now this is the triggering point for most people. In fact, this would be impossible for many people. And this would be even dangerous for some people. But I'm going to ask you to leave the calculator on and give the calculator plus the phone plus your name tag with a color, because for me it's one color here that you're going to be. It's not going to be segregated by status or anything different. Can you give your mobile phone and your lanyard to somebody close within the proximity of your seating? So give it as a gift, but find out one piece of information. This is quite important because I'm going to introduce these individuals here now, these very special individuals, but equal individuals to everybody here. Find out one piece of information from the person you're giving your mobile phone and lanyard to that you have in common, just like me, something that is just like you. So that's a little. If you know the person quite well, maybe if you've shared conversation, find out something new that you have in common with that person. Is that okay? Mobile phone, gift, you will get back, hopefully. Your lanyard, and one piece of information that you're going to get and receive from that person that connects you with that person. So one commonality, common humanity. Is that clear? So I can't see you handing over the mobile phone so easily. I get that. I understand that. You've different colors. Can you change your lanyard? I know we'll know who you are, but can you just change your, if that's okay, just to be the same as everybody else. Okay, so when you've done that, if you can take a seat again, if you've shared the piece of information that connects you with that person, okay, can I now remember 20 seconds ago I asked you to show me your energy, 10 here, 1 here, just for me to get some sort of vision here of how much you understand of my English. That would be useful. It's mainly going to be these individuals speaking, but if 10 was everything, and my wife and my family don't understand everything that I say or why I say it, 10 was a lot and 0's here, how much are you understanding right now? Either you're very good at exaggerating, or it's probably 60%. That's above average. Not so much, Dan. Above average for me. Okay, so what I'm going to ask us to do now, if my clicker is working. Does anybody know Murphy's Law? Have you heard of Murphy's Law? Well, I want to share something with you that my grandparents are Murphy. Murphy, that's their name. And I thought growing up that Murphy's Law was something that our family had just for me. So when it comes to technology, I will share honestly that I am what we call a technophobe in recovery. So I am not somebody who takes in technology very easy, but depending on how you define technology. If technology is just anything that makes life a little easier, I'm all for that. But in terms of technical skills, I am not one of these people that's so au fait with great technology and the types of tools we've been looking at for the last 2 days. So What can go wrong will go wrong. Murphy's Law. That's usually for me. So I'm skeptical already, even of the clicker here. Okay, so really quickly, we're going to move on as quick as we can and get to the speakers because there's some really important questions and hopefully as equal, if not more important, answers that we're going to get. And that brilliant anthem that you heard twice today already from the World Youth Conference on Kindness, I was really privileged, extremely privileged to be part of that in August for my first time in India. And some of the questions that I have today to give to the experts in the field of the topic that we're talking about, which is, does anyone know the topic? Can you shout it out? Is it running off your tongue? What's your topic? Technology with emotions. Let's use those two broad terms, technology with emotions, to describe what we're talking about. The mobile phone, you've switched it around. So if you've just joined us, it's okay. Turn on your mobile phone, put the calculator on, and I'm going to leave you with this little activity. This activity is not to show who's smart, who's intelligent, who's the best or the worst in the room. This activity, if you've seen it before, I apologize, but go along with it. It's okay, you can participate again. I want you to read, everybody read this sentence. Finished files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of many years. And feel free, gentlemen, to join in as well. We're not elite, we're just the same as everybody else in the room. So smartness, intelligence is not being gauged here. I'm trying to gauge something else. So with the mobile phone that you have with the calculator open, can you write down the answer to this question? And I'm going to give you about 30 seconds, okay? It's not a very difficult question, and it doesn't matter if your answer is different to the answer of the person beside you. In fact, that's fantastic. That's diversity. How many times can you see or read the letter F for football and for freedom and for many other things? How many times can you see the letter F? Put that into the calculator. If you've got your answer already, don't shout it out. It's okay. Keep your answer. Try not to peek into the calculator beside you. But can you take that mobile phone with a number on it, and can you pass that on to the next person? Just pass it on. So your mobile phone has been passed twice, just so you remember your item is somewhere else in the room. So can you pass your mobile phone on? Some people are already sharing some information, which is great. Can I get an indication? And we'll try to do this as quickly as we can. If the answer is 1, can you put your hands up? Can anyone see 1F? The letter F just once. 2. If the answer is 2, yeah, we've a hesitant hand here. It's not your mobile phone. We have a few more 2s over here. Any 2s over here? No. 3? Can anyone see 3? A few more 3s. 10, 11 people. 4. A couple of people with 4. That's fantastic. 5. Yeah, a few more people with 5. 5, and 6. Okay, this is great. This is fantastic, yeah? One question, one screen. It's not AI. This is actual real. This is one sentence that makes no sense. But this makes a lot of sense. The fact that we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what about more than 6? Can anybody see more than 6? Not right now. That's fine. So what are we trying to get to here? Why am I showing you this? This is reality. Not virtual reality, but reality. We have a group of roughly 100 people, say. And we have 5 different answers to a question like this. Imagine how many answers we'll have to the questions we have for these gentlemen here. But this is, for me, is about blind spots. In science, I'm not a scientist. There's many scientists in the room. In science, they're called scotomas. Scotomas. They're things that we're not necessarily looking for. If we're driving our car, for example, that's the scotoma. We need to turn around and look at the mirror. I'm inviting us to look for as many scotomas as we can, as many blind spots when we're connecting emotions with technology. And I'm inviting us to question ourselves to what blind spots have we discovered, and even what blind spots are we going to discover from this point until the end of the conference tomorrow. Okay, so scotomas, blind spots, and I'll be asking our speakers here today as well to maybe share some blind spots that they may have seen. They haven't been prepared in terms of questions, but that's one of them that they're going to get. So thinking about blind spots, particularly relating to emotions and science, emotions and technology. The most important thing in this screen right now for me is explaining the website here, because this is the next registration for our course, the course that I'm part of, a team facilitating at the moment. And it connects to a university in the United States and also MGIEP at UNESCO MGIEP. We're partners. We're partners with MGIEP and also the Charter for Compassion to run a training course. It's a training designed by a number of universities in the United States, but the training is run worldwide right now. And it's called Compassionate Integrity Training. Compassionate Integrity Training. And the center that runs this, that I work for at the moment in Atlanta, Georgia, is called the CISE, C-C-I-S-E. So it's the Center for Compassion, Integrity, and Secular Ethics. Compassion, integrity, and secular ethics. And a lot of my questions, I have two, and some of the other questions are from our kindness ambassadors from the conference we had in August. But they're related to the ethics and integrity in some way. So really, really quickly, and I'm going to try, I keep on saying I'm going to hand it over. I will give you the microphone, I promise you that. This program, for me, is really interesting because I call myself a technophobe. I'm a facilitator. I've worked in peace education and conflict resolution for most of my working life. And I was a participant in this program. It grabbed me in some way. It was doing something for me that other programs hadn't done before. And it's 10 skills. All 10 skills are here, but they're based on self-cultivation, cultivation of self, relating to others, and then engaging in systems. And the skills are broken down from calming the body and mind, ethical mindfulness, emotional awareness, self-compassion, and so on, until we get to interconnectedness, interdependence, and dealing with compassion and discernment. And for me, one of my worries, and I just want to share my worry, and hopefully I can get some answers to my doubt or my worry. And I don't know the answers. I have a worry because this started as a fully in-person, person-to-person course facilitated. 1, 2 facilitators, maybe 3, and the course curriculum. And we were guiding people through this. Then it went online. And we met many other people. Some people are sitting here that have maybe taken the CIT course. So it was person to person, but with the medium of online. The platform was Zoom that we're using, and Rizuku was the technology we're using to distribute this to more places than we could in person. And now, with the help of MGIP, UNESCO, and a few other partners, hopefully in August of 2020, this is going to be going from fully in-person to fully online. It will be a self-directed learning CIT course. I'm worried. It causes some concern and worries for me. One, mainly about the received knowledge bit. I think that it can happen. I'm clear, I've been convinced. The critical insight, critical inquiry, I think I've heard enough even in the last day or so to say that I think we can really analyze things and criticize them, and we can get that critical insight. The embodied understanding I'm worried about, because one key component of our training is that we have mindful dialogue partners. Mindful dialogue partners. And I'm very lucky because this man here was at one stage a mindful dialogue partner of mine, and we share insight and we share reflections on how we're feeling about the course and how we're feeling about the skills. But fully AI, fully online, I don't know, and hopefully we'll get answers to this, I don't know if we can get the depth that we're getting with facilitated educators or facilitators that are leading the program. So that's just a doubt that I have, and this is the program. That's the website if anybody wants to sign up to it, and we'll be answering questions later on. Can we just take a breath, actually? Because one of our skills that we talk about in this program is equanimity. It's a component within a skill, equanimity. So to breathe, to pause, to stop. Can we just take 2 or 3 breaths, big breaths in, feel a bit grounded, put your feet on the ground, feel the support of the chair, and take some oxygen and other things into your body to make you feel a little bit relaxed. Is that okay? And to yourselves as well. Please do that if you feel you need to. Where are we getting to? Quote. Last quote. And you each have a microphone? Microphones are ready? Great stuff. Why am I not wearing any shoes? I know that's the first question that probably came into your mind. It came into my mind as well. Why am I not going to wear any shoes? But this connects to it. This is a quote from this part of the world, Shantideva. I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly. But I want to get the answer that connects me to this quote here today. So where would there be leather enough to cover the entire world? With just the leather on my sandals, it was as if the whole world were covered. The story, I'm sure many people have heard about it before, where somebody who had an individual feared that they needed to cover the whole world, the whole forest, the whole jungles with leather so they wouldn't get hurt or afflicted or harmed by the surface of the ground. And so they wanted to cover everything with leather. But instead, on reflection, with equanimity, with many other things, with emotional stability as well, they decided maybe it's better to just cover the soles of our feet. I have doubts. I'm a bit skeptical. I want to get some leather to cover my feet, but I also want you with some leather to cover your soles, leaving not only this session, but the conference, that you have more courage to go and ask the difficult questions, courage to take the actions with discernment to go and lead in education or in tech or whatever it might be your field. So that's a question. It's not directed, but just to bear that in mind, I would love to know where the leather is coming from, how we can really get ourselves prepared to take the next actions, whatever they may be. And finally, let's introduce our individuals and hand the floor over to them. So we have Roy, or Surav. Anyone. There's a number of hats. There's a number of hats that everybody has here, but you know your hat that best suits this audience. So I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself. It could be professor, doctor, but we have Roy. We have Jacob F. Scherson. So in Danish terms from Denmark, son of Cher. Would that be right? No, maybe not son of Cher, but we know where we're going. And we have Isan Cook. My pronunciation again. Okay. And we have his lovely son, Wally. Wally, you're very welcome to the stage as well. So each one of these have something in common with you and have something in common with me. For example, Roy, he didn't know I know this, and it wasn't through AI I got this information. It was through human conversation. But we share lots of things in common. We met. We didn't actually recognize each other because we've only met online and there was no camera. We actually had a conversation for about 40 minutes and didn't realize who one another was. So Roy, his wife is an artist and is extremely creative, so there's creativity in the home. My wife is also an artist, and we share that in common. And I'm looking forward to hearing lots more things, Roy, about what we're going to be sharing here. But you're going to be talking about learning while building emotional intelligence virtually through the digital platform, and possibly Framer Spaces as one example of that. So Jacob works as a professor in the university. He's going to be blending physics, and by the way, quantum physics in 5 minutes. If you haven't seen the TEDx talk, fantastic TEDx talk from Jacob, you can watch that. But we're going to be talking about the Karanga project, amongst other things. And that's a global alliance for social, emotional learning and life skills. So I'm excited to hear a little more about that. And we have Ishan Huck, who has 2 sons, so like me as a father. And Jacob is also a father of 3. 3? Hats down. Before moving on to Ishan, there's a great rule that Jacob has at home, and I love it. I love a rule. So if he goes away for more than 3 days, his children get gifts. They get brought gifts home, which is fantastic. If it's less than 3 days, unfortunately, they don't get gifts. So they love Daddy going away for just over 3 days, so they come back with a gift. But I'm sure your wife explained she likes to have you gone as little as possible. So 3 sons and two children as well. So we have something in common. Just like me. 2 children, just like me, you're living in home away from home maybe as well, Ishan, because you're based in the United States. So based in India, based in Denmark now, and based in the United States. And Ishan, amongst other things, as a daddy, will be hopefully sharing something about the dynamics of behavior and relationships using ML to promote equality and access in education. I'd also say, if you get a chance to talk to Ishan later on, talk about lie detecting tests and how in some years, probably 100% proofed lie detecting. Just imagine that going into your job interview or coming home for a discussion at home with the app and somebody asks you a question and 100% you know you have to give the answer. Lots of questions coming up. The first round of questions, if you don't mind, in terms of technology with emotions, but we're talking about bots really, that's the question. technology can play, or can technology play, if it's a question, a key role in building, monitoring, leveraging emotional intelligence in learners, as emotions are critical to the learning process. But I'm going to join 3 questions, and feel free, any one of you, to jump in first. It's open floor for you. So the questions are, what concerns do you have? What worries, genuine worries, do you have for yourself while dealing with your technologies or your tools of technology and the emotions and the learning of real people? What are your concerns and worries? Connected to that, and this is really where the question's coming from me, what are the ethical dilemmas? Can you hear? What are your toughest ethical dilemmas in your work, if that makes sense? And we've already mentioned the blind spots. So ethical dilemmas, worries, fears, we'll share them, and we'll also share our hopes if we get a chance. So is that okay? We're handing it over. 20 minutes, well gone. So we took about 10 minutes to get ready. We're going to go at least 10 minutes over. So it can be this way down, or it can be anybody who wants to jump in. Gentlemen.
So I'll start by just saying one of the blind spots that I think that we have, all of us collectively, is that when we see problems, we really want to see solutions. And so we have a tendency to also sometimes jump too quickly to solutions. And I think that's one of the biggest fears, when we're talking about fears that I have, is that when we see this really big challenge, which is the future of education, which really is the future of humanity, what is the solution to that? And we're seeing AI, and we're seeing emotions and everything coming in as sort of the solutions, and we have to remember to think critically about that. And that's what, when I'm talking a little bit about what Karanga is about, that's about trying to make sure that we're grounded on our feet, and that we have best practices and best knowledge from around the world. So when we're talking about social and emotional learning, there's so much fantastic going on. But it's so important that when we start to pour lots of money into governmental and non-governmental efforts, that we make sure that this is based on best practices, which means social emotional learning, we need to learn from the best. We need to make sure that everyone is connected together. And that's what Karanga is meant to be, a social emotional learning global alliance that is welcome for everyone, and that both carries practitioners and researchers, and tries to sort of identify. There's lots of research being done. A lot of it is being done in the US, and that also means that we need to take the situational differences into account. If we are going to apply it in India, if we're going to apply it in Denmark, where I am, we really need to make sure that we have the best practices and also the best research to cover that. And I think that's the mission that we would like to sort of invite everyone to join into.
Okay, and you have the microphone at the moment, Jacob, so you've covered some concerns and fears. Are there any ethical dilemmas that you find yourself in dealing with on a daily basis, particularly the technology side of things, when you're dealing with emotions as well?
Yeah, so in my group, we use games, and we try to use games for education, and so we also try to sort of do cognitive profiling for good, so that means trying to really look underneath the hood of the individual students, and of course there are lots of ethical dilemmas associated with that, and when we try to do this, then we have our consent forms, and it's in Europe, so we have GDPR, and we're trying to sort of do everything by the book, and we have lots of our participants who look through the consent forms, and then they say, why is it so long? Why do I need to sign all of these things? And why is there a tick box for this and tick box for this? And why isn't there just one tick box that ticks off all of them so that I don't have to do all of that? And I say, that's because we're doing it according to the rule, and remember that the next time you go on Google, and then you sort of do that. And it's so easy. And so that means I think that us covering these ethically sort of challenging domains as a public-private project really carries the power to facilitate a discussion of how we want to do ethics. Another question that we have ethically, which we're dealing with on a daily basis, is we have our cognitive profiling games that we're trying to use for education and other things. But of course, that means that we know a lot about the human, the individual player. And the question is also, with the AI talk that we had before, how much of that information is it that we pass on to the user or to someone else? In an open environment, okay, we say, okay, it's better for the human, the individual, to know as much as possible about themselves, but we may actually be sitting on knowledge that says, you as a learner are, according to all of our metrics, on the bottom 1 percentile, And that's an ethical obligation to present that in a positive way. So what we are doing to try to solve that is that we relativize everything. We take all of our data and then we normalize it to the sort of average person that you are, and then we tell you about your strengths and weaknesses. And it doesn't matter whether you're Einstein or Forrest Gump, you have something to work on. And that's how we're dealing with ethical dilemmas and technology and emotions in that thing.
Okay, thank you. We can, if you didn't mind passing this on. You mentioned Einstein there. I mean, Einstein, as we know, is an amazing scientist, relatively and all the rest, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Just really quickly, we're all sitting on chairs for the last 2 days, and we know through postural science and medical science, sitting on chairs is probably not so good for our health, yet we're doing it. And I don't think I'm better or worse, but we do things constantly. Why are we continuing to do that? I'm learning a lot from some of the staff from MGIP, refusing to drink out of plastic cups the last couple of days. I have been drinking out of plastic cups. I've been sitting on chairs, and we're not challenging that. I feel when I say it's not that we're not challenging. I have blind spots, and I need to challenge them as well. So Ihsan, in terms of worries, concerns, but mainly ethical dilemmas that you're currently dealing with.
So very briefly about worries. I feel that as a researcher within AI, we have a tendency to be super optimistic about what we do and forget about the long-term negative implications. Just for an example, in the 90s, people worked on face recognition technology. It's a very popular thing to work on. But right now, there is a region, they're using face recognition technology to look at citizens and then compromise their privacy. Nobody thought about it when they worked on it. Social media, early 2000, came out. Nobody thought about Cambridge Analytica a few years ago. So it's really important to think about negative implications, even not right now, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, and take precaution right now and have a dialogue, just like we are having today. So that's my worry, that we are not doing more of. In terms of ethical dilemma, I'm going to go back to Shane. He mentioned to you that, asked me about the work that we are doing in terms of recognizing deception. And people can argue, how could you work on that problem? It has negative implications. And the way I answer that question is, if I don't do this, somebody else will. And that could include a dictator region of a different country. So it's much better to do this research in an academic environment where we are publishing everything we're doing while being surrounded by folks like Shane, asking difficult questions and engaging the society as how this technology could be useful and how it could be harvested for negative. So that's the negative. I can stay away from the problem or do it in a way that serves the humanity in the better way.
Okay, and hope that it stays within that framework in an ethical sense and not exploited for financial gain maybe to people who might, and I think people can see clearly, may take advantage of that to the detriment of ourselves and humanity. So, and any nuggets or blind spots, we can come back to that as well, but anything you would like to share from your research, because I didn't really give you an opportunity to say what you're doing, or who you are, what you're doing. But is there anything you could share at this point? And I'm definitely putting you on the blind spot from your research at the moment.
So going back to deception, you can argue that deception has negative implications, but I thought about there's some positive implications, like suicide being an example. Many people are attempting suicide, and then female will attempt and show some symptoms. Male will not show any symptoms and commit suicide. And in most cases, they are denial. So imagine a primary physician to be able to use technology to understand when their patient are denying, to be able to intervene effectively. So every technology has positive and negative sides. Similarly, that's my son. When I was looking into nanny for him, I only had 20 minutes of interaction with the nanny to decide, do I want to trust him with this nanny for 8 hours per day? So in that case, a technology would be valuable to see, do I really want to trust this person? So there's always this positive and negative side of technology. You talked about deeper conversations. Should we trust AI to have deeper conversations? I found applications where individuals who may have autism, who don't want to seek help from an individual, are much better with an AI system and be able to practice their social skills. So it's a double-edged sword, and depending on what's at stake, who are you serving, everything changes.
Okay. Do you want to say briefly just who you're representing here and maybe what the core of your current research? please.
So if you look at the AI research general, they're all working on making AI really smart, in some cases smarter than human. We say, can we AI so smart that it, by turn, makes us even smarter? So build AI that improves human ability. So that's the research in which we are operating at this time.
Brilliant. Thank you. Roy, please.
Thanks, Shane. No, welcome to all of you. And the reason why you say this kind of unconventional construct across sessions is by design itself, because one of the things which we have faced in these discussions is that we are in such specialized areas that we don't get a chance to talk to each other. So in whenever each one of us talks, some group would feel that, oh, it's not my language, but that's the challenge we have had while designing a conference like this or a session like this. But coming to the session and the question in hand, for us, UNESCO MGIP, whose mandate is use the tools of social emotional learning and digital pedagogy towards the goal of SDG 4.7, dealing with emotions was almost a mandate itself. And when that happens, and the case, if you would have heard Ananta's yesterday's tech talk, was about role of emotions in learning. What we wanted to bring back to the table, and especially in the context of learning, was that how a learner emotes towards a topic he or she is learning is also extremely important in the way he or she learns and the learning path they follow, and what recommendations or what interventions are exposed to them.
Can they be replaced? I think the answer yesterday was no, they can't be replaced. But if we were to replace, for the likes of CIT and many other social emotional learning tools, how much? Because we want to scale it up, we want to reach more people, and that's essentially the dilemma that we have. We want to reach as many people as we can. Right now, we can't do that due to time constraints and people constraints. If we were to take people out of programs like CIT, at what is that cost, do you think? And sorry, you had the microphone there, but Framer, I will get to, we're going to go back down, but Framer Space, if you could just maybe mention, because our program is right now at a crucial point, it's about to jump in and go fully digital. I don't feel I have the leather on my shoes right now, or on my feet, to jump in fully, but is there anything you can say in that respect, and we'll move back down the line, if you don't mind?
No, and that's the concern we also find it, because I went through this extremely personal training, and when you talk to educators, they say education is an extremely personal experience, and I would also, for good or worse, that personal connect has something which has played a major role. And the challenge which was thrown to us was that, yes, you need to reach to these people who have not yet had a voice or would get impacted in a positive way, hopefully, through a program like this. But how do you capture those intimate moments where I was extremely surprised that even in that virtual setup, how amazingly vulnerable the participants became. And one of the reasons why I would say is because of amazing facilitators who could draw out the emotions from the people who were participating. And my worry is that there is a AI system which is implementing a program like this, and it creates to a emotion outburst, and there is no one else to say guide it or to help process it or channelize it. And I don't think that's where the design becomes extremely important of how you implement a solution like this. And the candidness that what are we ready with, what are the things, because one of the questions is not, for this panel is not that what technology can do, but then what are the things which technology should do? Like I would just give one small example, like one of the cases which came to MGIP itself was on the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Our director wanted to create a hologram of Mahatma Gandhi, and we wanted to create his audio through his limited audio recordings, recreate his voice. And that's when my research on number of such services and that started. And ultimately, we could not sample enough of Gandhi's audio to be able to train the system. But it's so easy for you to do it for anyone whose audio samples are available. So then the concern became, we were being very ethical in our side, that no, it would be Gandhi, his words in our era. So we were going to make sure anything which is only from his writings is what we would make his hologram actually cover. But what if there was not a person who had that kind of moral compass? And it was someone else's message in his voice, which is what we have seen in political campaigns and things which we encounter with. So coming back to the point is that we need to be very candid, and we need to be very sure about where the limitations lie, not just what we can do, but where are the scenarios, what is the rigor of thought which should go through, not just superficially, but to do a deep dive in the whole chain, considering all the stakeholders.
Jacob.
Yeah, so I agree, and I think that it's very important that we take the view on technology that it is a unique opportunity for us to look at sort of what it means to be human in that sense. So I can say that I'm very fortunate in my project that I have two different groups of people that give me constructive criticism, in the sense that they think our project should be shut down. And they think that it should be shut down for two different reasons. One group says that it is so trivial that it is not worth spending time on, and the other group says that our work on games is so dangerous that it's more dangerous than Google, and it's a danger to humanity to do that. And so that's sort of a mirror of saying, okay, when you try to look at these things, what it means to be human, then those are the kinds of things that happen. And as we're saying, it's really important that we take these discussions. And in that way, it's very important how we talk about this. And I think that, to me, I would prefer not to talk about these human versus AI battles and what is it that will be, who will be the winner of these battles, but more to choose our language. When we have teachers here, when we have policymakers, then it's really important how we talk about things. And the real future that we're going toward is something that Isan also pointed towards, which is a hybrid intelligence future, in which it is so important that we find out exactly what it is that we humans are good at, and then not automatically think that AI is this hammer. So asking you ask us, how is it that we can scale this up with technology, and how is it that they can solve all our problems? You already sort of give viewpoint of that, represent that viewpoint of saying, well, that's the hammer, and we are hammering on that, right? Whereas if you're saying that your project is a fascinating project on behalf of humanity to discover when your hammer fails, then it's a fantastic thing, right? Because you try it and you fail. And that's the same thing with us, saying that when we, for instance, look at creativity, we try to use games to assess creativity. It's fantastic if after 5 years of effort we fail. And we say, there's still something that we still don't understand. That's the effort that I think that we should be driving, and that's the way we should be talking about it, is that we're not talking about replacements. We're really talking about hybrids, in which it's so important to be focusing on what the strengths of being human are. So I can just tell one quick story, and that was when I talked to some, so I had an open call for collaborators. Then there was a person in the back of the room. I told about our project, said I would love to collaborate, and then this person said, I have a question about your consent form, and then she said, do you on your consent form say that these games could potentially sort of give new insights into AI? And I said, yes, we that's one of our research goals, so we do say that, and say, oh, I'm not finished yet. Do you also write on your consent forms that work on AI could potentially be the ending of the human race? And so I said, no, we don't have that on our consent form, because that's exactly that viewpoint, that what we're doing now with these technology projects is actually learning what it is to be human. So learning what it is to be human is not a threat to our humanity. It's actually a unique opportunity that we have.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jacob. And fear of failure, I think we certainly have to try again. And sometimes tools can make things very easy. Like these chairs, for example, back to the chairs, it's a tool. I wish I could sleep like Wally's there is falling asleep. You're going to have to say something really interesting now, Ishan, to really engage your son, at least at this stage. But
I wanted to be Desi parent and wake him up. But I think the question was, your question was that, do you have anything to offer for your leather, for your feet, right? As you move more towards digital. I mean, if you look at today's conversation, you have a very unique characteristics of mediating. You came in without your shoes, you really had people do stuff, you brought in unique perspective. I think replacing that with AI, it's almost impossible and something that we should not do, right? I think we should retain that level of interaction where we feel honest with each other, we open up. I think that part we want to restore. Having said that, there might be other sweet spot where technology could be more useful. How many of you enjoy meetings in a workplace? Raise your hand. Nobody? One? So people don't enjoy those meetings because you have to get through a number of items, and sometimes people could be difficult, and sometimes you're not constructive. I think in those cases, maybe imagine Alexa or Google Home being the mediator, giving floor to individuals as appropriately, cutting people off when they're monologuing, and you cannot be mad at Alexa for cutting you off. So there may be a sweet spot where automated mediation AI could be very beneficial and help us to be more productive. So identifying those things and pursue them accordingly, understand that certain things, even though inefficient, like having Shane as the moderator versus an AI system, we want to keep that.
you're saying the right things right now, but thank you, San. And again, yeah, it is relating to that concept of not being afraid to fail. And I was certainly somebody who avoided technology at all costs, but has been slowly but surely sold new ideas. And with our CIT program, the Compassionate Integrity Training, I can see the benefits of being able to work with 23 other nations, young people on one call for an hour a week. We can have those mindful dialogues. We can have those accountability conversations with people, and we're gaining from that. But when it's gone completely, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to. We'll certainly reach more people, but I'm now being sold bit by bit by bit, and maybe there is the technology there. Maybe it does exist. A question that comes from.
Sorry, I just have a quick thing, because I think it's really important that the challenge of the future for all of us is to be able to distinguish between these positive. So we hear these positive stories, and we should use those. We should really take advantage of those, but we should just not be blinded to say that, okay, here are some positive stories, so that means that we can also apply it automatically in another setting, right? So we as all of us really have to build up our critical thinking in terms of these applications, because although we may be able to have a meeting, and that meeting, can be, so meeting time can be shared more efficiently, yes, but that doesn't mean that when we have these socially very emotionally sensitive meeting points, that's not necessarily that hammer. And for us to build up the ability to tell the difference between when to use one and when to use the other one, that's the biggest challenge that we have in the educational system today, I think.
Okay, thank you. I'd love for us to be able to share some of the information around technology actually having the capacity to empathize and to do the things that we're talking about here, and also how important perspective is. In Ireland, we drink an awful lot of tea, just like India, and we drink other stuff as well, unfortunately, too much. But in terms of the perspective, such a simple activity, maybe AI would be able to do this very, very easily, but if I was just to hold up this cup with green Indian tea, it's lovely actually, mixed with lemon, and I just say to everybody in the room, from your perspective, where you're sitting exactly now, can you tell me in your words where the handle of the cup is? Is it to the front? Is it to the back? Is it right or is it left? And you're saying? Definitely. 100%. If the lie detector test was here, would you pass that it's definitely to your right? Okay. Okay, so from your perspective, you're saying you're empathizing over here. You're saying from his perspective, it might be a bit different to yours. For people over here, where's the handle of the cup, please? Can you see it? So how do you know where it is? Is it definitely there? Somebody can say, AI, great technology here. Not even AI. Fantastic. You've discovered you're thinking outside the box for sure, not just looking here, but looking behind me. So it may not exist. And over here, left, right, towards the left. And our gentleman here might see a very, very different viewpoint. I'm aware that you might be falling asleep, and we've 15 minutes left. I really want to get to a lot more blind spots, or as many as we can. So if you don't mind, if you're sitting a bit comfortably in your chair, move. Ask somebody else if they wouldn't mind switching chairs with you, and just change your perspective a little bit. There might be some burning questions that you have to ask, and if we have 5 minutes at the end, we're going to try and get, and it is only 5 minutes because we will have question time afterwards. But if you have questions burning, we have a roaming, throwable mic that we'd like to get to. And I have 2 or 3 questions from young people who have already submitted questions from the Kindness Conference group. Feel free to move around, but also feel free to sit in your comfortable chairs and be happy and enjoy them, because they're there for a reason as well. They're a tool. The conversation around empathy and the ability for technology to have empathy, to show empathy, whether it's cognitive or affective empathy. A question that came through from some of the young people, talking to other young people in schools in India and in other parts of the world. The name Greta Thunberg comes to mind to so many inspiring people around the world with climate anxiety and climate fear and climate crimes happening. If artificial intelligence or many other forms of intelligence can have the ability to empathize, and yet we hear of so much technology which is destroying our environment, our climate. Would anyone like to share any insights you might have to be able to challenge some of the technological problems that are being caused, and the anxiety that young people particularly, for the next generation and the next generation after that, there is a sense of fear that it's going to be left in our hands. So what can technology do to deal with these emotions that are real, genuine emotions for real people in our world? And anybody who wants to jump in at this point can grab the microphone.
So in our learning modules, we're building learning modules that cover the various different SDGs, and in each of those we really emphasize that every problem is a socio-economic and socio-scientific problem. So that means that there's both a scientific solution, but there's also a social solution. And so that means that I think the important place where technology can come in, and where we use technology, for instance, is to have programs that teaches not just the technological aspects, which is sort of knowledge about something, but also the human aspects of that. So how we collaborate. And when we need to sort of move towards solutions of SDGs, we need more than anything else knowledge about how sort of behavioral economics and how we as humans behave on masses. And I think that's where technology can go in, also in the emotional and the collective and the social phenomena, that we can use technology to teach that at scale and have people interacting. In some of our tools, we have this sort of local framework, and then you also have a global framework, which means that you can start to engage with some students or others or learners or practitioners around the world and use technology to really connect on a global scale.
Okay, thanks, Jacob. Roy.
So I think Dan had brought in an amazing point of role models in a couple of his interventions, and that's where I feel is a place where the things need to be turned, not just in terms of, so that's what, so the biggest technology products which have disrupted or impacted our lives have a different design, or have a flawed design is what I would leave it at. And that's what we are judging technology and its interventions why. But we all know it's just a tool. It's an optimization tool for at the most basic or the most abstracted level. The goal setting is what therefore becomes extremely important. What are you optimizing? So you said about, you know, the next generation bearing the burden of the way whether we do a responsible implementation or we do a extremely irresponsible, reckless implementation. I think that the need lies in, can we have a success story in which we can create similar, if not bigger impact, doing the things with the right design? Because if we are able to show that by example, then immediately the role models change, curriculum change, our perception towards technology change. We cannot blame if we go to a school and the teacher says, you know what, I don't want my child to have a screen time because all there is on the screen is unfettered access to horrible content or in age inappropriate or things which he or she should not see. So if that's the only option which we are giving, and where technology companies, they have made you either choose between the functionality or between your data privacy or data ownership out of it. Google Maps. For me to go from a point A to point B, that's my go-to place, go-to app. Because it's amazing. It tells me even about the traffic, it tells me a real-time picture, it tells me even about collision. But then look at the amount of data points it has on someone like me. Fine, I don't care about my data points but then my wife or there are people who I have an amazing trust in, they don't have the level of information which a platform like Google has. And that scares me. Because by design, what they have done is, you love the functionality, so you would tick on everything and anything which they place in front of you. If you are able to do that in a responsible way, which is what at UNESCO MGIP with help of global experts like all of you who are participating in this conference, and through these discussions, we are trying to create something which not just, it's not about that, we should come up with the right solution, but that's what we are trying to create in everyone who comes to a conference like this, that's the challenge which we want to throw to you. Can we have better role models? Can we have better design where truly that's the model which people want to follow rather than the flawed models which are there currently?
Thank you. Isani, you can answer this question, or there's plenty more questions as well. You want to put it back to the audience? Okay. And just to mention, while we're going to get the microphone ready here on standby, some of the other questions that were coming in but young people particularly would like to put to the group as connected to the ability with technology to empathize. What about health? What about eye health? What about physical health, because we're becoming addicted to screens and not moving as much as we would need to move? How can we actually create these hybrids? How can we create technology with education, with emotional programs, but moving more? They were real fears. And another question that's coming in, and if we get a chance to answer this at the forum at the end, to your children, do you say click the OK for data? Are you comfortable giving advice to your children and other children around the world that, is it okay, and should we just press click and worry about it later, or should we do something else? Is there that space for equanimity, that pause, that breath that we need to take before advising the young people particularly to click? How many times a day do we do it, and how and where is our data going? Are we comfortable with that? We did touch on that briefly, but if you want to jump in on any of those specific points, and we have our microphone ready. If there's one or two very, very, very specific questions, and I don't apologize by saying it's not an opportunity to introduce yourself and make a comment, but if you have any really dying important questions right now that we need to get out before the session finishes. We have one hand here. Okay, so we can get the microphone. Would you like to jump in first?
So I'll jump in quickly and
go to you,
so follow up on what Roy said. I think one of the most important things that we can do for technology today is that we can take back the power of designing the interaction when we collaborate. And I think collaboration is really sort of key to how we're going to solve problems. And collaboration today has more or less been reduced to Google Docs, which means that Google, in a teaching, in a classroom, if you want to collaborate, then you have this firm setting in which the interface in which you can collaborate on the content, but not on the form of the interaction. And I think that's something that really we need to explore much more. In one of our projects, we're working on something called literate computing, which is really to design interfaces in a completely different way so that you can sort of redefine the Google Docs or the interactions that you have in a much more fluent way, which means we can empower the individual teachers to design an interaction that is fit to their needs and not just to sort of the Google framework.
And so that's what you're saying to teachers and educators. To your eldest son or daughter, what's the advice I mean, because I'm sure they're going to be exposed to this today. Do they click or do they pause and wait for new technology to?
I always tell them to ask me first, and then we talk about it. But it's really in the discussion that it comes out.
Okay, thank you. Question here, and if it's okay, you can take the first question, please.
Hello. This is open to everyone, and I would like to hear views of each one of you on this. The question may sound a little philosophical, but it's also related to how we're using technology with emotions. To me, freedom to make choices is the biggest gift that a human being has. In light of technology with emotions or emotions with technology, how do you see that choice still resting in the hand of the human being and not flipped to the other side? Have I made my question clear?
So freedom is a big part that
Freedom
I hear,
to
and
make
joy.
choices in the perspective of light technology, and you have emotions attached to it. How does that freedom to a human being still be given to be exercised to grow and evolve?
And I love the fact that you've asked it to everybody, not just to our speakers, but if we want to take it up first.
I have a very brief answer. I think that should be rephrased at freedom to make better choices with AI or emotion. I mean, we should certainly make our own decision, but is there room for AI to help us make better decisions? That's my answer.
Thanks, Isan.
So we actually, very good question, and this is something which we encountered very recently. In fact, and that's the reason why we had to get into areas where we never thought as a UN body we have ever went through, but then we had to. So the thing was this, it's like I was sharing that the learners, if emote differently, should be taught in a different way. For example, if I'm a course creator on climate change, and one of my learners is from the Trump school of thought where he or she thinks that it's all a hoax, and when he or she is journaling, joy is the most predominant emotion which is coming out, versus other learner who I have in my class, who I'm projecting this or sharing this course with, who is extremely angry by how we are squandering the limited resources. Both learners cannot be taught the same way. So one of the things which we did was, when we initially thought of it, then we were like, so technology, the score is what we can calculate. We can do a sentiment and emotion analysis through the text, the text, voice, as well as the facial attribute changes which a learner is making. And then when a score, which a creator gets to decide if it's more than, say, joy, if it's more than 0.5 or 0.6, then direct them to this particular course or not. But then when we got to discuss with more and more people, we just realized that that's the part where I think we are taking away choice from a learner. That yes, we can help them provide some maybe relevant recommendations, but not like actually take a decision on behalf of the learner himself or herself. So in the design, that's what I would always come down to, and it cannot be just on the developers, because sometimes exposure set becomes, but then that's where it comes, it goes to the policymakers also, it goes to the auditability, explainability, and every other aspect which goes beyond technology to come in and make sure that the design is inclusive of the end user. And it's that basic right is not what's getting violated. And when someone says better decisions, sometimes I think the challenge lies in by whose definition better. And that's where I think we become, that becomes sometimes tricky in some context.
Thank you, Roy. And unfortunately, we are quite tight for time, but Jacob, did you want to make a comment on this?
Just very briefly, that's what I said before, and I think that the lack of freedom is really a lack of knowledge of alternatives. And so when we accept the way things are, when we accept the computer program and the AI system that we are, that is being pushed down on it, that's because we as individuals are not aware of the fact that we could actually have programmed it in a different way. So I think one of the best paths to freedom and of freedom of choice is really to make everyone aware of the vast majority of technological solutions that are possible, so that we're not content with the ones that we are served with. So it comes from the bottom to say technology could actually be different, could actually not limit my choice, but actually broaden out my choice.
Thank you so much for the question, but also for the answers there. Unfortunately, we are coming towards the end of this particular session, but if you do feel a little like me, that there's a little bit of leather, but not so much leather to go so far, and you need more answers to some of the burning questions that you have, or doubts, or little bits of skepticism that I heard yesterday are invited in this respect, please do come to the session afterwards and get some one-to-one dialogue and conversations. I'm realizing that there's two other reasons why I'm wearing no shoes right now. One, because my shoes are just not that nice and they didn't go very well with what I was wearing. But the second is the empathy. And it was very clear to see the young people here having empathy, trying to put themselves literally in the shoes of somebody else from a different perspective. But I think we need to be prepared for that, like literally preparing ourselves to say, I want to be in the shoes of you right now, in the firing squad, so to speak, but also in the shoes of people over here with lots of questions and ideas and potentially anxiety plus hope. There's an Irish writer, Samuel Beckett, and I don't want to give him direct quotes, but he talked a lot about the fear around failure, that we just need to do it. We need to just do it, fail again, fail well. And one of the guidelines, and I can finish with this, of this compassionate integrity training, they're not rules, they're guidelines, is to look for progress at every opportunity. Look for progress and growth, not perfection. And I don't think we have perfection with any of the programs that I've been involved in. I think there's always room for improvement and for skeptics like myself to be sold in some way, but to keep asking those questions that I hope we can get some answers to. So it's aspiring rather than expectations, aspirations rather than expectations, and progress rather than perfection. So if we can put our arms and hands together to applaud our speakers. And also a round of applause for our audience. Make sure you get your mobile phones back. If they're gone, please don't blame me. I have no responsibility. Get your phones, get your lanyards, and continue to enjoy the rest of the educational afternoon. Thank you very much.